It's currently day 8 of the government shutdown, and it feels like we've all been trapped in a political version of Grounding Day. Same arguments, same speeches, same pointing of fingers, just a new number on the calendar. I was watching CNN earlier and they had Nancy Pelosi on, which honestly surprised me. I mean, how does she still have the energy for these things? This woman's been in politics since what feels like the beginning of recorded history, but credit where credit's due, she still shows up, and she did in classic Pelosi fashion, ready to defend the Democrats' strategy on this shutdown.
We are day 8. This is a real stalemate, unless you know something I don't. But right now what we're seeing is President Trump and Republican leaders are saying they're not going to negotiate on extending the healthcare subsidies until the government reopens. So I guess my first question is, what's wrong with that position? Why not open the government and then negotiate?
The government was opened, and then the Republicans closed it because they did not want to extend health care subsidies. It means that it will raise the cost of health care to America's working families. They had their chance for all of this, but they didn't do it. Now they're saying, oh, if you open it, we'll do it. I don't believe that, but nonetheless. Here's the thing. The reason that the government is shut down is because the Republicans have insisted on taking down the subsidies, also Medicare, Medicaid, all of that, food for children, hundreds of billions of dollars for SNAP, to give a tax cut to the wealthiest people and the wealthiest corporations in America. You don't expect us to say, okay, we'll agree to your giving a tax cut to the richest people in America and increasing the cost of health care to open government. It's going to be up to them. They shut down government, and they're going to have to open up government. They have, every shutdown since the 90s, when I've been around anyway, has been a Republican shutdown.
I understand what you're saying about where the differences are, and they are very big. They are voting yes on what we say here in Washington, a clean CR, a bill to keep the government running for 7 weeks, and Democrats are voting no, and for the reasons you just said. So how are they shutting down the government?
First of all, it isn't a clean CR.
Okay.
So let's not stipulate to that. It's not a clean CR.
What do they have in it?
Going into that.
Now, let me just say, watching that exchange was something else. You know when you tune in expecting the usual soft, polite back and forth between politicians and the press? Well, that's not what happened really. CNN's Dana Bash actually pressed her a bit. It wasn't aggressive, but it was enough to throw Pelosi off her rhythm. And that's when things got awkward very fast. Pelosi started arguing that the continuing resolution, or CR, wasn't clean. Apparently it had too many strings attached, and I remember thinking, wait, aren't we just talking about keeping the lights on in the government? Like basic functionality here.
From what we have heard of their negotiations, they are near a final version, and from what we have heard, it sounds pretty positive. Of course, I would like a longer lifting of the debt ceiling, but nonetheless, this is great progress. That progress evidently has struck fear in the hearts of the House Republicans, whose reckless, radical behavior has called upon them to sabotage the bipartisan effort in the United States Senate. This is day 15 of the shutdown, which has hit our country hard and harder by the day. Now, for reasons that I don't quite understand, the Republicans want to, in the House of Representatives, again, want to sabotage the bipartisan effort in the Senate, and that will hit our economy hard, our global standing as well. But what is also interesting is how it hits the American people in their pocketbooks. It's going to mean higher interest rates on student loans, car payments, mortgages, business loans if you happen to be a small business person. It's going to affect your 401k. And why? And why? It's hard to understand because this is very, very damaging. What you saw here earlier, was that here where they were? The speaker was here? Yes. Was a speaker who did not have the votes for his proposal. If there's any hope here is that they don't have the vote. So why are they doing this to the American people? Sabotaging a good faith bipartisan effort coming out of the Senate. Wasting the public's time. And in this case, time is money. Time is money. This is going to be very costly to our economy, even if eventually we do lift the debt ceiling. The cost in interest payments will be in the billions of dollars.
Dana tried to get a straight answer out of her. How are Democrats not shutting the government down if they're voting no? Pelosi's answer went in about 12 different directions before landing nowhere near the question. Something about healthcare subsidised, Medicare, food programs. It was like she was reading a political grocery list. And here's why I actually paused the interview. I needed a second because, for once, I actually found myself surprised that even CNN seemed a little skeptical. When CNN starts side-eyeing a top Democrat, you know something's off.
Democrats who created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, all of that, are now being asked, reject that so we can give a tax cut to the rich. We're not doing it. And it isn't a question of, well, let's come back together so we can discuss it. That isn't going to happen. They had that chance. Now they just have to open government with it as a stipulation.
So how do you get there? Would it be the president saying he's willing to engage in negotiations? Is it, I mean, what do you actually need tangibly to get there?
Well, let me just say I'm so pleased with Hakeem Jeffries and the role he's playing for our House Democrats, Chuck, of course. But here's the thing, everything important springs from the people. The public knows that this is wrong for them. This is a kitchen table issue for them. This is a kitchen table issue. They want costs lowered. The Republicans are raising the cost. And this is, our members have been all over the country spreading the word. Lincoln, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. And that is what we were doing. They're going to hear from their own constituents that government has to open up under these conditions.
And the conditions are that you want them to just automatically raise or extend, I should say, the subsidies for Obamacare?
Yeah, not to cancel them, but also it has to be in the law.
When you say cancel, they expire at the end of the year.
Yeah, so they must be expired.
Without any kind of negotiation over it, because they want reforms.
What reforms do they want? They want it to reduce,
So you just don't buy any of it?
What do you mean reforms?
I'm just telling you what they've been on TV saying constantly.
I know that's what they say on TV, but look at history, look at the experience. When he was president before, he was going to whatever. He said Obamacare sucks.
Now, here's what got me. Pelosi went on this long explanation about how Republicans supposedly want to cut programs for the poor, gut healthcare, and hand out tax cuts to the wealthy. It was dramatic, but a little detached from what's actually on the table. The reforms Republicans are about reducing waste and tightening eligibility rules, basically making sure the system isn't being abused. But Pelosi framed it was a full-scale assault on working families. That's her angle, and she sticks to it like glue. At one point, Dana Bash has her a pretty simple question: why not just open the government and then negotiate? And Pelosi said she didn't trust Republicans to keep their word, and I get it. Politics is about leverage. Nobody wants to give up theirs, but when your entire strategy depends on public sympathy, maybe don't go on national television and sound like you're okay, keeping the government shut just to make a point.
Securing our border is a responsibility we all know and share. It's an oath we take to protect and defend the American people, and that's one place, not just the southern border, but all of our borders. So let's hope that the president will stop holding the federal employees hostage. They provide so much of the needs of the American people. We've had a big focus on what it means to these families, the federal employees' families, and that's important. It's also important to know that they provide services to the American people, and they are being delayed, as well as hurting the economy. I hope the president would understand what it means to families not to have a paycheck in real time.
So you don't see this as a way to open up the conversation and begin negotiations, take the president's proposals?
No, we said open up. Let me be very clear. Open up government. Open the government. Let's talk. Cannot have the president every time he has an objection to say, I'll shut down government until you come to my way of thinking. Understand that is part of the point of this. If we hold the employees hostage now, they're hostage forever. And by the way, what the president proposed is granting what he had already taken away. The DACA recipients had their protections. temporary protected status, TPS, had it protected. The president took it away, and now he's saying, well, I'll give you this back temporarily if you give me a wall permanently. Open up government.
What about the state of the union?
We understand that.
And that's the thing. Pelosi's political instincts used to be sharp, but lately it feels like she's still using tactics from a decade ago when simply blaming Republicans wasn't enough. That doesn't work now. People can literally fact check you in real time while you're talking, and that's what's killing her credibility. I watched that interview and I could see she knew it wasn't going well. Her tone shifted halfway through, less confidence and more defensive. At one point she tried to pivot to the kitchen table issues. That's her favourite phrase lately. This is about the cost of living, she said. This is about what families care about. Sure, but families also care about the government functioning. If your paycheck depends on federal funding, you're not thinking about long-term economic theory. You're wondering how to pay rent next week. And here's what's really surprised me. Dana Bash actually interrupted her, not rudely, just firmly to clarify that Republicans have been saying they're open to negotiating once the government reopens. Pelosi dismissed it outright, like, oh, they've said that before.
We're all interested in reforms all the time. The subsidies are a reform. Under Biden, they are an improvement over the Affordable Care Act, and I'm very proud of the Affordable Care Act and the reforms. But they have not, they want it, over 70 times they voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
But this is a very specific part of the Affordable Care Act that you know better than I is popular in a lot of their districts
and that's
across the country.
And you say, how are we going to open it? We're going to open it because it's very popular well among Democrats, among Republicans, and among independents.
But you also mentioned making cuts to programs that Congress had already approved,
yes.
Raising. So you're talking about a wide array and wide range of wants and sort of demands that Democrats have. You've been through this kind of thing many, many times. I still can't see, and maybe you can explain it, how you get from here to there, because it feels like we're going to be in this for a long time.
Well, when President Trump was president before, it was 35 days.
Yeah.
And I remind you, he said, I'm very proud of this shutdown. That's the words he used, because they don't believe in governance, and then they don't believe in the work that government does. So now they're saying they may not pay the employees that do the work, which the law that he signed says they must pay.
Well, let me
the
ask you about
employees.
that. I'm glad you brought that up, because not only are they suggesting that perhaps they will not pay some furloughed workers,
Yes.
they're also still holding out the possibility of just firing federal workers.
Now I sat there thinking, wait, didn't Democrats say the same thing during the 2019 shutdown? Back then, Republicans wanted the border wall funding, and Democrats said, reopens first, then we'll talk. However, the roles have flipped, but then the script stayed the same. It's almost poetic. If it weren't so frustrating, everyone's rehearsing the same argument, just with different branding. Pelosi insists Republicans are the villains. Republicans say Democrats are the obstructionists. And meanwhile, real people are sitting into limbo because Washington can't agree on something as basic as keeping the lights on. Now, when I saw Pelosi doubling down, even as CNN's host pushed back, I couldn't help think this is about policy anymore. It's about pride. Neither side wants to blink first, but Pelosi, more than the most, can't afford to look weak.
We do not want to shut down the government.
Because you can't get
The
your
last
way.
time you shut it down, you
Yeah,
got
let
killed.
me say something, Mr. President.
Let me say this.
North Dakota
This
and
is the
India.
most unfortunate thing. We came in here in good faith, and we're entering into this kind of a discussion in the public view.
But it's not bad, Nancy.
No,
It's
but
called transparency.
I know, it's not transparency when we're not stipulating to a set of facts.
And to be totally honest, I didn't expect CNN to let the interview unravel like that. Usually they give her a wide lane to talk, but this time even they seemed tired of the talking points. When Dana asked her what reforms Republicans wanted in healthcare, Pelosi gave this vague, roundabout answer. It was so unclear that even the host had to push again. What reforms? And Pelosi just sort of brushed it off, saying that's why they went on the TV. The irony was almost too much. She was literally on TV saying that what people want to say on TV doesn't count. By the end, you could tell both women wanted the same segment to end. Dana's questions got shorter, Pelosi's answers got more defensive, and I sat there thinking, this is what happens when politics becomes performances. No one's trying to solve the shutdown, they're trying to win the argument about who's responsible for it, and I'll admit, I don't have all the answers. Maybe Republicans could have handled the negotiations better.
Against you and your fellow Democrats, to do whatever it takes to vote yes to reopen the government.
No, with all due respect, they were going to fire these people anyway. Just look at their game plan. They were firing them
So
anyway.
you think it's
and
an
the
excuse?
workers know that. The workers are better informed than most of us on this because they're bearing the brunt of it. And they know they had this firing lined up for a long time.
So you don't buy it? You think this is an excuse?
Of course I don't buy it, but I don't buy it, but there's clarity here. It's no use confusing the issue with, oh, they might have and would have and should have and all that. No, they're giving a tax cut to the rich, $4 trillion tax cut to the rich at the expense of food in the mouths of babies, health care for families, Medicaid for long-term health care for seniors as well as for poor children, not to even mention the Medicare cuts that they have, but I will mention them. In any event, don't ask Democrats to say we are going to reject everything we stand for in Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. They're firing so many people at Social Security, it's hard to get your benefit.
Yeah.
So this is a budget is a statement of values. What is important to you as a nation is reflected in your budget, and they have shown what is not important to them.
And I know, we're asking Republicans tough questions too, because the question is, where is their compromise? There has to be at some point. I want to ask you about what's going on in some Democratic-led cities. President Trump this morning called for Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, to be jailed. Yesterday, he hinted that he might invoke the Insurrection Act to send U.S. troops into cities. You obviously come from a very well-known Democratic city, San Francisco, which so far the president is not immediately talking about sending troops in. But what should the Democrats in these cities do? What can they do?
Well, let's talk about what the president should do.
Maybe Democrats could stop acting like reopening the government is a political favour instead of a duty. But what I do know in this is when even CNN starts looking skeptical, you've officially lost control of your narrative. It was strange though, seeing that small moment of pushback against Pelosi. It made me realise how fragile political power really is. You could be one of the most experienced figures in Washington and still get concerned by a basic question you can't quite answer. I didn't expect that, and honestly, it made me wonder how much of what we see on TV is actually about policy and how much is just a performance we've all agreed to watch. Because from where I'm sitting, this whole shutdown isn't about the budget, it's about control, ego, and who gets the last word. And if that's the case, we might be here for a very, very long time.